Okay, so hello, my name is Ruth. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to explain a little bit more or go into a little bit more detail about leadership presence and what we're going to be looking at in this workshop. Because leadership presence is one of those things that, one of those terms that can get totally tossed around out there and mean all sorts of things, and it's hard to know who to trust, what to actually listen to. So obviously I'm biased in explaining this and why you should trust me, but let me explain a little bit, and then you can make your own judgment from there. So leadership presence, what is that? So I'm sure there are all sorts of different ways of defining that. In my opinion, or the way that seems relevant to me, is that leadership presence is a state of being that conveys leadership. But key in that statement is state of being. So when I talk about leadership presence, I mean the underlying emotional, psychological, physiological state that is present in a person's being as they interact with the world. So yeah, okay, so just to put that out there, there's one piece of the puzzle here. And given that it's okay, so then along with that, meaning that it isn't necessarily what a person is thinking, and it isn't necessarily what a person is doing or has done. It is the underlying state that supports effective thought and effective action that are definitely a part of effective leadership, right? You can't be an effective leader with just a beautiful presence. You also need to be thinking and acting effectively. But here we're talking about the underlying state that supports that. Great. Okay, so we got that covered. So in this particular workshop, and given my background, right? My background is as a mover, as a dancer, as a meditator. So really my strength and my experience is all about looking at that underlying state of being, and in particular, looking at that underlying state of being through the lens of sensation. Because certainly what I have learned, at least over 15 plus years of dance training and work and professional performance, is that you are only successful as a dancer when that is your focus, when you're firstly orienting around the sensations that are present in your being. And of course, that seems obvious. And then the question arises, well, just because that's relevant for a dancer, of course that's relevant for a dancer. How is that relevant for a leader in a corporate or organizational setting? But it's relevant because you cannot actually separate the physiological sensations from the emotional state, from then the quality of thinking, from then the quality of action. So if you're not supporting this layer, it is very hard to get effectiveness, and especially effective collaboration and engagement with other. So that's my pitch, or at least part of it. So in this particular workshop, one of the things I'm really excited to look at is, okay, let's dive in a little bit more into what are the qualities of a presence that really genuinely evokes a sense of leadership for us, right? What are the qualities we experience in another person? And again, just a little note here on, I know there's a lot of numbers out there in terms of how much of communication is verbal or nonverbal. And I'm not, in my mind, I'm not sure percentages make any sense. I think it's an ongoing experience in dialogue. I doubt it's a set proportion that's continually running. But what is important to understand here is that as embodied beings, as beings who exist within an organism, right? And an organism whose key foundational language is sensation, that has a huge impact on us, and that as soon as we're in space with another human being, that dialogue and that communication is happening. There's no avoiding it. That is going to happen. A lot of it happens at a subconscious nonverbal level, and along with that, we can override some of that communication with our frontal cortex, right? So it's not, it doesn't mean we can't act in spite of whatever communication is happening on this more physiological level. But it's just very important to name, in particular for the type of work that I do, because that's the level of being that we're working with. We're working with your physiological self. We're working with your felt sense, which your reality as it's experienced through sensation, which then is directly related to your emotional reality, because emotion is actually sensation. So just to put that out there in terms of, it's important to have that within our understanding that so much communication happens non-verbally, and not just a great deal, but very impactful communication, right? If you look at how we evolved as an organism, as an animal, as an animal, right, into whatever a human being is, right? We had these layers of development, and now brain science talks about the brain stem, right, that reptilian brain, and then evolving the mammalian brain, and then evolving the prefrontal cortex. But still, all those levels are alive within us. And because the deepest level is really survival oriented, it sends very strong, intense chemistry and messaging, resulting messaging through our system, right? Those two, the reptilian survival and then mammalian kind of communicative relational brains, have very big impacts in terms of our experience, right? That experience of survival, that experience of belonging, that experience of safety. That's why those are so important, because if those are not present, our system is in a state of distress. There's no way for us to rest. So that's why we can't skip those levels. We need to include those levels. So, and that's, anyways, again, really just important to hold those within our understanding as important factors in terms of the development of leadership presence, and to just be honest about that, right? We are still animals, and a huge part of our communication still happens on that level, and never won't. I mean, again, ideally, as we develop, we have the ability to not be so pushed around by that, or respond necessarily to that messaging. But it's useful. It's useful in terms of the survival of the species. So we don't want to get rid of it. We just want to acknowledge that it's present and then learn to work with it effectively, which working through sensation does, because we're not denying the fact of that huge amount of our experience that is physiological and sensation-based. Okay, so now what I'm really excited to dive into at the workshop is to look more closely at what are the qualities of leadership presence that really speak to us, that are genuinely powerful, right? So the ones I've identified so far, and this is a working theory, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts and opinions on this, is kind of, I've named 5 here. So first off is a state of calm or centeredness. So, and that could be equated, or at least a part of, confidence, right? An ability to really feel good wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Yeah, you could think of it as, I'm losing the word, but that an organism has at rest, right? That the organism can rest. So that kind of state of calm. The second state that I think is crucial to effective leadership presence is a state of listening and receptivity. So when they talk about leaders who are able to react well to their surroundings, or are visionary leaders, right? I think, in my opinion, those are human beings who are very present in the moment, who are able to perceive and take in the signs and sensations that they're picking up from the world around them. Okay, third state of being, I would say, is a state of investigation or a state of curiosity. Because truly, there's no problem we can't solve if we can stay in a state of curiosity about it, right? We get into trouble when a problem presents itself and we panic, right? Fear comes up in our system and then we can't respond. It's like, I don't hope you've experienced this, but I'm sure you have. I certainly have, where a problem presents itself, and rather than being like, okay, this is what I have to do, and then I take this step, and then I take this step, and then I take this step, fear is present in my being. So it's like it shuts down a lot of the functionality that I would otherwise have. I can't think as well. I can't act as well. I have way less energy. It's like I can't see things properly sometimes, anyways, I won't go into the detail, but I think we can all relate to that state of being. So a state of investigation and curiosity without fear. That is very powerful tool. Fourth state, that's an important part of leadership presence, is a state of giving or a state of generosity, which is a state that implies coming back to the state of receptivity or listening, a state of receptivity or listening, but in relationship to another human being, in relationship to that being with a genuine sense of warmth and care for that person, right? That is very powerful when we feel that from somebody else. And then the fifth state, and I'm not totally sure about order of these, I think they're all equally important and probably gonna come up at different times, is the ability to take free movement towards vision. So I guess implicit in that is the ability to have vision and then to move freely towards it. So again, here we kind of come back to this idea of curiosity absent of fear and how powerful that is. And in this case, to be able to hold a vision and then move towards it really freely and directly and consistently without fear is a big deal, right? And that doesn't mean you can't be an amazing leader and have fear come up. In fact, you're probably a far better leader if fear does come up sometimes, because you're going to be able to relate and support people who do experience fear, which is, I think, all of us. So yeah, it's not about getting rid of it. It's about being able to continue that forward motion towards that vision in the face of fear, because that's often, again, a very intense and limiting state of being. Fear is. Okay, cool. So on a non-verbal level, we definitely are looking and feeling for all of those states in our leaders. So those 5 states is exactly what we're going to explore on Saturday. We're going to look at how you can really tap into those and how you can genuinely develop greater contact with those through deepening your own somatic awareness and some fun, simple exercises and tasks you can do to continue to develop that within yourself, so that you can really show up in the world with that power and that ease and that curiosity that really will allow your competence and your skill and your vision to shine forth, so you can really do the work you're meant to do. Okay, so anyhow, come on out. If you have any questions, don't be shy. It's going to be fun. It's in a beautiful setting. We're going to have a relaxed but really productive, lovely morning. So I really hope you will join me and others and come play. Okay. Hope to see you there. Bye for now.